at the risk of having county governments literally grind to a halt, not having money to spend?
It is, for me, it's not an ego problem. It's not a problem of who wants to be, to be seen as being better than who. I think for me, this is a concerted effort between the national government, National Assembly, to actually stifle devolution. Remember that way even after independence, devolution was fought. Majimboism was fought. And the whole essence of devolution has been to bring services closer to the people and ensure that, people are able, there's common citizens are able to enjoy the fruits and basically the benefits of devolution, quicker and easier service delivery to the people. But now when you have devolution, you see devolution does not exist in a vacuum. It comes with mandates. County governments have actually been devolved so many functions, and yet very little money is being allocated to them. At the moment, the devolved governments are actually, devolution is receiving, I think, 15% of the share of the national cake, and the national government is, the national government is receiving 85% of the share of the national cake, and yet most of the functions are now being handled by county governments. And this is where you start seeing cases of medical strikes, doctors striking within the county governments, because county governments, even as it stands right now, do not have enough funds to be able to carry out the functions that they need to carry out successfully. So it is not a question of corruption, because if it was indeed a question of corruption, then cutting down the allocation of money to county governments is not a solution. We have legal ways of dealing with corruption. If there is corruption within counties, follow the legal mechanisms that need to be followed, have the governors that are involved indicted and arrested. And if it was indeed a question of corruption, then does that mean that the national government itself is corruption free? Has the national government been able to deal with corruption to the extent that they can say that now it is the county governments that are perpetrating corruption to such a huge scale, such that we need to cap their allocation?
So, but then the question would be, why would the national government want to strangle and literally bring the county government to its knees?
I don't know.
Because then that would advise maybe the war, the chest thumping between National Assembly and the Senate to try and prove. Because what is happening here is that the Senate say that we need more money. Yeah. National Assembly are saying, no, that money is not enough, and we have been given the mandate to oversight and to make sure that we pass this budget or not pass it. So, as with our power, we say it is not going to go through.
That's the thing. It's a question of they want to control, services and what the county government can and cannot do. For instance, let me give you an example of health being a devolved function. You have health as a devolved function, and yet you still have the national government actually doing most of the tendering of equipment that is supposed to be used by county governments. And that is why you find a lot of hospitals having equipment that has been tendered for them on their behalf, on behalf of county governments by the national governments, equipment that they end up not using, because if you were to go to these hospitals within the counties, that is not their need at the moment. So I think it is a question of power, it is a question of control. The national government still wants to have control over county governments. Okay. And it is also a question of the fear that what if county governments end up becoming independent? When you now start having governors focusing on their own business, focusing on delivering their mandate to their people, and not necessarily digging their heads into what, the national politics of what is currently going on in the nation. So, like, I'll give an example of the West Pokot governor who recently was hosted in one of the national television stations for an interview, and he said, I am busy focusing on delivering my mandate to my people. So I think the national government is afraid of getting to the point where county governments are fully small governments that are independent without the interference or control of the national government.
Okay, David Osiani, before I give you all around to wind up.
That referendum thing that has been spoken about in low and high tones in equal measure. These are some of the things that the referendum ought to address. These are some of the things we should immerse ourselves in. The Senate was meant to be the upper house. It was fought vehemently. I remember in one of the national TV stations a couple of years back trying to demonstrate why whenever you have an opportunity to create laws, you must be objective. Because someday, the very laws you create may be in the hands of your enemies. The person on the other end to try and implement that law when you are away will be your enemy. And how will he use the law that you created to try and pinch another person? It will work against you. The parliamentarians making noise against devolution now must know that one of them or many of them will ascend to that hallowed spot or to the role of being a governor. They will want substantial amount of resources to be able to meet their end of the bargain to their citizens. I gave examples of how my good friend Boni Halwale decided back then that governors must not hold flags. No. These people will be demigods, only to go and run to be a governor. One of the people who opposed the Senate being an upper house, the biggest opposer for it was Kiraitu Murungi, only to end up becoming a senator himself and now governor. At the time he was making the laws then, he thought that no, senators can't be big, because he didn't know that he will be told by his constituents, you can't be an MP, you can't be a governor, and only land as a senator. So these things, it's cyclic. Listen, I was blessed to work under the tutelage, as an advisor, under the tutelage of the devolution Doyen, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, in which role I interacted quite in depth before I even studied public policy with devolution. And I understand only too well, if you compare the state of the nation today, the status of the economy of the villager, I will tell you, whereas these governors have looted helter-skelter, it's far much better than before we had devolution. We have to agree that there are aspects that were not rendered to the people until devolution came. The people in Marsabit, in those far-flung areas, will tell you. The people of West Pokot will tell you. We were a forgotten nation until devolution came. So whereas our governor may have looted, a bit of things are being done. They might not be as stellar as Kivuda Kibwana. They may be looting, but they must commit 40%, even if they loot 60%. But this is again the reason I wait for the day our institutions work. Because a governor will leave office the moment we see a governor. You can have all the days in the sun, my friend, and your 2 terms end. I want to see after the 2 terms end, civil society helping the electorate who cannot help themselves in terms of going, because they have decided they can, but they've decided they don't care. Following through with the corruption cases, executing them in court, prosecuting these people, having them locked up in jail. A South Korean former president came to Kenya as a president. In 1 year, she is in jail. The former president of Brazil is in jail. We look forward to the day these governors who are small gods will be thrown into jail. Then their successors will know that I can be powerful as God knows what.
Today,
I can wield power and influence. I can have the money to buy the OCPD, OCS, PPO, DCIO, everyone around my county,
but
so
it's
that I am
for a period.
attached. But after 10 years, justice gets to happen.
All right, we'll need to wind up. I'll give you each 30 seconds if we can manage to contain ourselves within that, just to wind up and give us your closing remarks. One, looking forward to, or rather not looking forward, but anticipating what maybe we're likely to see over the weekend, politically speaking. And 2, just now, that war between Senate and National Assembly.
To my fellow citizens who've been called sheeple and betraying voters in various formats, we must agree as a nation on what are the basic limits beyond which we will not bow. We must agree that as a country we must fight corruption. We must agree. We must also agree that as a country we must develop. We must also agree that as a country we must unite. On those 3 basic things, can we for once judge our leaders based on those 3?
On those things.
What is your development record? What is your corruption record? You can't be the one who's mentioned from page 1 to page 16 just before sports on corruption, and then you are the one who wants to run for governor, MP, MCA, and everything.
Your 30 seconds are up. Ruth?
I will try and use my 30 seconds very wisely. One, All talk without action is useless and baseless. The president needs to stop talking and start acting. Otherwise, he can easily be compared to, the lavish guy, Nganga,
Lavish.
So he needs to stop talking too much and act. And second, devolution is a very young concept. 9 years is too young to begin fighting a concept whose intentions was to ensure that the Kenyans are able to enjoy services as efficiently, as fast as they can. So I think that devolution needs to be empowered, devolution needs to be supported as much as possible so that we as Kenyans can be able to enjoy the fruits and the essence of the current constitution.
All right, thank you. Your 30 seconds up. David Osiani.
I hope President Kenyatta's event at Rivertex today offers an opportunity for Tanga to look at themselves introspectively and ask whether they want country or self, and that they will choose country over self. I also hope that President Kenyatta will be able, together with his older brother Raila Odinga, to keep an eye and focus on fighting corruption. And we want deliverables. I saw the Kenya former CEO and former finance director have been thrown into jail for 3 years, and DPP has to be congratulated for it. But I want much more, much bigger, because if we are to transform this country the way Lake Wan Yu did with Singapore, you go for the big fish, the small ones will tremble.
30 seconds up. Thank you very much, David Osiani, governance expert, Ruth Ambogo, political analyst, and Mark Bichachi, communications consultant, for joining us this morning on Reviewing the Week. And that's the Week in Review. For now, we're going to take a short break, but do stay with us right here on Morning Express. We do have much more lined up for you, including hot topics.